Hi everyone, I'm Bernice, and in this video I will be sharing some ways which I use to memorize music. I started making a serious effort to memorize music around 6 years ago, and since then I've never looked back. Here are a few reasons why. Firstly, I listen to myself and to my accompanist, if there is one, a lot more when I play something from memory than if I use the score. Somehow, without a music stand and notes in front of me, my attention is not spent on reading visual cues, but instead is completely devoted to the music. Secondly, I find that when I memorize a piece of music, I'm forced to learn it so much more in depth, simply because I have to remember every little detail, such as exactly where do I start to crescendo, lengths of notes, what different kinds of articulations am I using at different points of the piece, etc., etc. Sometimes, even when I've penciled in notes on my music score, I may still miss them when I'm playing from it on stage. Obviously, in those instances, the details have not yet been fully ingrained in me. And lastly, I think it could be useful to start making a habit of memorizing music, because it is starting to become a norm in competitions. For oboists, sonatas of course don't have to be memorized, but in international competitions, it is starting to become customary to require certain repertoire, such as concertos or solo rep, or certain rounds to be performed from memory. So without further ado, let me get to the 5 points which I've prepared for this video. First point, practice and repetition. When I learn a piece of music for the first time, I first play it once through to figure out all the notes, and then I play it again to add the details into the music, such as dynamics and articulation, and then I play it another time to get familiar with the music. Over the next couple of days of practicing that piece, I find that when I close the music score and try to play it from memory, I'm roughly able to, because I know how the melodies go, and also because of muscle memory. I will still make mistakes at this point, simply because the music is still so new to me, but this is the start of the memory process. Second point, go deep into individual bars and details. Usually around the third day of practicing the piece of music, I zoom into the smaller picture to start committing individual bars to memory. If it's Baroque music that I'm memorizing, I find it a lot easier because Baroque music is intensely structured music that is primarily based on patterns. However, if it is modern and pretty atonal music that I'm memorizing, it takes a longer time for me, and I usually have to do it bar by bar, figuring out and memorizing intervals between notes, and just identifying any kind of pattern really that will aid my memory of the piece. For this microscopic method, I'm very careful not to be overambitious and cram too much into one single day, because our brains need time and sleep to be able to process all this new information. From past experience, when I've tried to do too much in one day, I ended up taking a step backward rather than forwards, because the following day I realized that it's all still a blur, and essentially I've wasted a lot of time the previous day in trying to memorize the music. Third point, mental practice. For me, this point is equally important as physical practice. Someone who's playing I really admire once said that if you're able to imagine in your head running through the entire piece from the first note right to the last note, without interruption and with all the details of the music included, then there is probably a 99.9% chance that you will be able to do it on stage as well without the score. There shouldn't be any single note that you are unsure of when you're imagining the piece in your head. If there is, it probably means that the memory of the piece is not as solid as it should be, and you still have work to do. Fourth point, I try to create as many possible different scenarios for myself to practice running through from memory. I go to friends' houses to play for them. I organize lunchtime recitals at various venues. I run through the piece first thing in the morning when I wake up, before I've had breakfast, and before I've started warming up, etc., etc. Be creative. The bottom line is that you try to run through the piece from memory in front of as many different people and in as many different situations, venues, events as possible before the actual performance. And lastly, the fifth point is to write out on manuscript paper. This is the point that I like the least, but I do find it pretty helpful. So normally for me, when I memorize music, one of the final steps in the process is to write out the entire piece on manuscript paper without referring to the score. If I'm able to do that 100% correctly, with no doubt in my mind at all as to any particular note in the piece, and with all the details included as well on the manuscript, then I have a lot more confidence that I'm able to perform it on stage in front of an audience from memory. In conclusion, I'd like to end off by saying that memory is like a muscle. The more you use and exercise it, the better you become at it over time, and also the easier and the more quickly you'll be able to do it with experience. I think memorizing is easier and comes more naturally to some people than to others. For instance, some people have a photographic memory and are able to picture the score in their head without the actual score in front of them. I don't have that ability. But even if you find memorizing music very difficult at first, I'd encourage you to keep pushing yourself and to stick with it, because it does get easier over time. So that's all I have to offer for this video. Thank you for watching and see you next time.